Our film starts with stuff happening, specifically stuff that has to do with a cab, while ominous music plays. I'm guessing our cab driver's name is Stephen Tepes because we're shown that name and it wouldn't make much sense to show us this otherwise. The guy we assume is Stephen stops and picks up a distraught blonde woman who asks him to take, would it be considered a long cut if it's a longer route? Anyway, they head to the park where she freaks out, gets out of the cab, throws a 20 at Stephen, and takes off. Stephen takes off after her and brings her back into the cab. He finds out her name is Susie, then starts making out with her. They poof into some dark void where he starts feeling her up. She complains of not being able to see, which then leads to him fanging out and feeding on her. He then heads back to his coffin. Skip forward to a music video shoot. Some guy in a suit shows up and opens the door, ruining the shoot. Everyone gets all bent out of shape, and the guy Eric asks the director to lunch. She, who apparently is his girlfriend, says no. We then see him screwing the singer in the dressing room before leaving. Skip again to a strip club where a stripper gets really rough with the guy, but let's be real, he deserves it for wearing sunglasses in a strip club. I mean, really, no way he can see what's going on and just looks like a tool. Anyway, after the performance, she disappears and the guy heads backstage somehow to give her back her S&M costume. She has him follow her outside where she leads him to a dark alley. When she opens her jacket, he notices bite marks on her chest. She then pulls out a razor and stabs him to death, followed by drinking his blood. Fast forward again to the coroner's office where the coroner shows two cops the guy's body. The blonde cop is your stereotypical cocky jerk who apparently doesn't take his job very seriously, which annoys the coroner. Back with the video director, who we now know as Michelle, she finds out that her project has been cancelled. She goes outside, frustratingly trying to light a cigarette, and waves down our buddy Steven in his taxicab. Oh, sorry. For you younger viewers, a taxicab is like Uber, but way more expensive because it's like being in a tiny school bus for two, and the surprise is not knowing how much it is until you get to where you're going. Anyway, after he gives her a fancy matchbox to light her cigarette, he takes off to take her home. This leads to Michelle venting to Steven about her problems. Remember the show on HBO Taxicab Confessions? Think that, but without the random smut stuff. Steven drops her off, but holds her hand and introduces himself before letting her out. He then heads to a diner where he talks cab stuff with another cabbie. The other cabbie starts talking to Steven about the murder, saying that he thinks he knows who is doing it. When the guy mentions the strip club, Steven takes off without saying anything. Over with the cops, the black cop tries to convince us that there is a murder season, and it's weird that someone was killed out of season. So far, this movie has not remembered to movie, almost a half hour in and no plot yet. Back at Michelle's place, she takes a shower. When she gets out, we see a faggy Steven watching. Michelle flips out due to some flashing lights and we see Steven attack her. Wait, that's not her. That's the stabby lady. I think the person who edited this film did it with a machete. Anyway, Steven asks who we learn is Fran the stripper why she murdered the guy. She says because she wanted him to come back and she'll do it again. I bet she'll be glad when cell phones are common since seducing and murdering someone anytime you want a conversation seems like a lot of work. Okay, now back with Michelle. She really needs some nicotine patches or something. I swear I could smell her apartment from here. She smokes so much. Anyway, we see her play with Steven's lighter, followed by one of them having a fantasy about a ceremony that ends with Stevie fanging out and Michelle also being a vampire. We then skip to Michelle at the studio where she finds out via a phone call that she only has a few months to live. Well, technically they said they could treat her, but she's like, screw that. See kids, smoking is bad for you. Maybe, they actually don't tell us what she's dying of. As she walks out of the studio, Steven is waiting and offers her a ride. She says it's a coincidence that he was there, and he corrects her, saying he came back for his matchbox. At the end of the ride, Michelle invites Steven to her Halloween party and informs him that she's married, but her husband is a cheater, so not to worry about him. So I guess Eric is her husband, not boyfriend. He agrees to go long before she gives a sob story, but she tells it anyway because we have to pad the runtime. As she gets out of the car, she gets lightheaded and falls over. Steven goes and grabs her, and when he gets close, fangs out. They kiss, and after she tells him she's better, he freaks out and leaves, saying he shouldn't come to her party. Somewhere else, sometime later, Steven stops to fix his car when two thugs show up to rob him. He gets shot, and instead of taking off with the cash box they took, they stop and watch him get up. Steven then Jason Voorhees walks towards them as they continue to shoot. The thugs finally take off, but at this point it's just a game of hide and seek. The last thing we see is him lunge at the one who had the cash box. We then see him clock out from work, which of course is the important part to show. The next day, our favorite detectives find the bodies and say words. No more than a line or two, though. I don't think the budget allows too much screen time for them. Skip again, and we see Steven working and being pulled over by a cop. The female cop tells him to get out, and manhandles him. She cuffs him, throws him in the back of the car, which is way more cushy than a regular cop car, and as she's stripped, we see that she's also one of his sippy cups, like Fran the stripper was. So he gets some hot lady cop juice to go. I guess it's Friday now, and we're at Michelle's Halloween party. We see her check her watch, I assume looking for Steven. Her husband Eric notices how weird she's acting, and she says she's fine. And we all know when a woman says she's fine, she's not really fine. We then see Steven arrive looking like a busboy at a fancy restaurant. He apologizes to Michelle for being late, and she forgives him and gives him his complimentary mask. This takes us to Montage City, where he meets Eric, and then we see Eric and the singer from the shoot flirting. Post-montage, we see Michelle and Steven dancing. Steven asks why he was invited, and she gives a story about how he reminds her of a dream she had about rain and birds. Okay. For the record, I don't think they're even dancing in this scene. It really seems like they're just spinning in a slow circle, and it's kind of getting me motion sick. Later in the party, we see Eric is being jealous of Michelle and Steven, which leads to her falling during a confrontation. She then tells him about the whole dying thing. Again, we're never told what she's dying of, just that she tested positive for something. He tells her how they'll find someone to treat her, but she stops him to let him know she wants to die. We also see Steven get in a car where another sippy cup is waiting for him. Meanwhile, Michelle runs out of the house after her confrontation with Eric and heads to the cab. She then sees Steven feeding on the other woman and kind of freaks, I guess. It's not exactly fright, but more anger, maybe? She then runs off and he finds her. He then tells her the other girl isn't dead, then gives a whole spiel that he shows up and specifically comes after dying women and knows her situation. She tells him she loves him and they kiss. Well, that didn't take much convincing from him. Steven takes Michelle home to screw, while we see that while that's happening, all his other sippy cups are freaking out and screaming his name. I guess they feel that they're being cheated on? As he and Michelle finish, we see one of the girls murder the other cabbie, while one kills a night watchman at a junkyard. Michelle then comes home to Eric looking very pale. She says she didn't mean to hurt him and will stay with him before fanging out, and we then see him wake up and that it was just a dream. Back with Super Coroner, he tells the useless cops that he can tell that the person who killed the dead cabbie is not the same as the one who killed the strip club guy. I guess he's watching the movie too. The cops then get a call where we see that the cop sippy cup probably killed her partner and is claiming she just found him there. Black cop calls back to headquarters where the station says that lady cop is the one who called it in. When he goes back to confront her, she slits his throat, hisses at blonde cop, and takes off. She then arrives somewhere and grabs a shotgun, but before she could get to wherever she was trying to go, blonde cop shoots her. Steven tells Michelle basically now that they've screwed, he can die in peace or something along those lines. He's very vague here. He then takes her home. As she's headed into the house, he loses consciousness and leans on the horn. That really makes sneaking back into your house after cheating on your husband very difficult. She grabs him and walks him in and makes her husband help her take care of the guy she's cheating on him with. That's some alpha female stuff right there. Anyway, she goes for a walk for some reason, leaving her husband with Steven, but catches him just before he opens the curtains on him. We then get some throwaway scenes where we see Lady Cop Sippy Cup survive the gunshot and is locked up, losing her mind while Blonde Cop and Coroner continue to do their one-lined every 15-minute conversations about bite marks. We also see Steven bite and feed on the singer that Eric was cheating on Michelle with. Michelle then comes in and sees the singer's body and decides to taste some of her blood. Steven said he couldn't help it because he was afraid to die, even though he literally said he was ready to die a few scenes ago. Apparently she isn't dead because Steven tells Michelle to kill her before she comes back from the dead. Wait, that doesn't make much sense, but that's what he said. Yeah, Michelle, go kill the dead lady. Eric watches the whole thing and goes to call the police, but Michelle stops him. When he throws her down, Steven takes off to rescue her, completely ignoring the whole decapitating the singer lady thing he was about to do. He confronts Eric, but Michelle stops Steven before he can bite him. Eric then uses the distraction to stab Steven in the back and then run. Michelle tells Steven they need to go home, but he says there's something he needs to tell her. Maybe he wants to tell her why he looks like he has a head full of dandruff every time he fangs out. That's what I would want to know. The film then cuts to Eric talking to a paranormal professor that attended their costume party earlier in the film. He tells Eric he believes his story will help him go after Steven. Meanwhile, Steven and Michelle screw again, causing all his remaining sippy cups to go crazy again. This includes the cop feeding on her own gunshot wound and the singer coming back to life and feeding on a guy at the studio. Unlike the ones before, these ones actually have fangs. I wonder what the difference was. We then go to Michelle taking Eric to a film set of a cemetery. This then leads to the big finale because why not? Despite there shouldn't be any way that these people know where Michelle and Steven are, Eric and the professor still somehow show up and confront Steven while the singer attacks Michelle. Steven then uses his vampire powers to make Gilda the singer come to him where he decapitates her. I guess he just needed to be angry to do it, otherwise could have done that when he bit her. Steven then goes after Eric, which distracts him long enough for the professor to put a stake through his heart. After he's presumably dead, they start hearing monster-like noises. That's when we see the rest of his sippy cup show up. Wow, Steven was a busy guy. Not sure how he makes any money at his job with all that backseat stuff he's been doing. All the vampire women circle the professor and pounce on him. Eric, seeing what's going on, tries to escape, but struggles at the door padlocked shut. As the women turn their attention to him, he takes a hammer and eventually opens the door, resulting in the women and Steven burning in the sun. He then grabs Michelle's body and goes to stake her, but is shot by the blonde cop who barges in just in time before he could do it. How exactly the cop knew where to go? Who knows? Though it was clear all those throwaway one-liner scenes just existed to set up this one throwaway moment. The film ends with a guy asking for a taxi. The last thing we see is the cabbie turn around and it's Michelle, who fangs out after telling the guy he'll take him where he needs to go. By the way, if you thought this film didn't make sense, check out my review of the sequel. Yes, there was a sequel. Thanks for watching. If you like these recaps, please leave a like and subscribe and hit the bell icon to know every time I update. There is now an option to be a channel member where you'll get access to exclusive recaps from late-night vampire catalogs like Showtime, Cinemax After Dark, USA Up All Night, and much more. If you want to help my channel grow, please check out my Patreon, where members can get exclusive content that can't be uploaded on YouTube, along with download options. Link is in the description.